Hi guys, it's Mrs. Taranja with the Citizenship Academy. So for today, we're going to read a chapter from your readers called What's It Like in Space. Ms. Badman is also going to be putting a video on for a story that she's going to read. And then your exit ticket for today is to go and compare and contrast the two stories. So let's get started. Chapter 10, What's It Like in Space? Since Apollo 11, many more astronauts have traveled in space. Scientists have learned that there are many differences between Earth and space. One of the biggest differences has to do with gravity. Remember that gravity is a force of attraction that pulls things toward one another. The force of gravity on Earth is pretty strong. Even the best jumpers can only jump a few feet off the ground. Try it and see. It says, want to jump high, you will have to fight against gravity. And then the caption here is, the astronaut is inside a spaceship in space where the force of gravity is less. Remember that on the moon, astronauts Aldrin and Armstrong were easily able to jump up high. They didn't come down quickly either. Instead, they seemed to float down slowly. This was because the force of gravity on the moon is not as strong as on Earth. The moon is not as big as Earth, so the force of gravity is not as strong on the moon. If you think that is cool, wait until you read what happens out in space, away from the moon or planets. Out in space, astronauts do not feel the effects of gravity. They and their spaceship are moving freely in space. Since the astronaut and spaceships are moving freely together, the astronauts look and feel as if they are floating. Up in space, lots of things are different. You can do a flip and not worry about whether you will make it all the way around before you come down. When you are free of the effects of gravity, it is easier to do flips and cartwheels. Look, no hands. These astronauts' lunches appear to be floating. Eating is different in space too. I'll bet when you eat lunch at school, your food stays where you put it. If you set it on a table, it stays there until you pick it up. The force of gravity holds it down. But if you were up in space, you and your food would be moving freely together. If you let go of it, your food might drift away. There's actually really cool videos if you ever want to look that up on YouTube. You can actually look up videos where it shows astronauts like drinking water and things like that because the water actually floats too. It's pretty cool. There are other differences in space besides less gravity. Do you remember that the astronauts on the moon had to carry tanks of air for breathing? Another way outer space is different from Earth is that there is no air or oxygen at all in outer space. Look again at the image on page 69 of the astronauts inside the spaceship. The astronauts are not carrying tanks of air. That's because oxygen is being pumped inside the spaceship. So going back, even though they are still technically in space, their spaceship is actually designed to pump through oxygen, so they don't have to wear their tanks. But if they were to leave the spaceship, that's when they have to have their oxygen masks. Since there is no air in space, you also do not hear sound in outer space. It is also very cold in space. The astronauts must train many months before going into space so they know what to expect. Do you think you would like to go into space someday? This is what Earth looks like from the moon. Can you name some ways that being in space is different from being on Earth? So this whole text talked a lot about the differences of being on Earth versus being on the moon. So now that we've read the text for my story, be sure to watch Miss Badman's as well. If you already have, then you can go ahead and do the exit ticket. Again, you're going to tell me what's the same about the two stories and what's different. You're not looking for the similarities and difference between the moon and the Earth. You're talking about the two different stories, so please don't get those confused. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.